So hopefully you guys can see that there. We have session one, master the basics of content creation. Okay, so some of you may have iPhones, some may have Android. So I am partial to iPhone because my second time around going back to school, I went to University of Connecticut my first time for biological sciences. And I ended up being a store manager at a swimming pool retailer. But it led me to where I am today. Now, when I hit that rock bottom in 11 years and 1 month ago, I ended up in the hospital. I had no job. I lost my house. My only son at the time had moved back in with his mom. I had this slice in my forehead from a woman at the time who was my fiance. Her son and three of his friends decided to be tough with me. And I didn't want to fight. I'm not like that, but they were pushing and pushing, and I ended up having to defend myself. So my head went through a door and I broke my shoulder. I separated my clavicle from my sternum, which basically that right in there. I got to move my camera down too. You guys are probably looking at my shiny bald head. Hey, there we go. I want to give a shout out to Harley Davidson too. So my bike is my life now, but it's winter. Brum brum. Sometimes I just listen to the sound of my bike making a coffee. It's like bub 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 on my phone. Um, so where was I? Um, but that night
Yeah.
things changed for me, and I ended up about a year later, within a year later, decided to go back to school, and I went back to be an app developer. So making applications on phones, and I learned over a few years, I learned 9 different computer languages, but I was most fluent in a newer language at the time called Swift, which is a newer form of Objective C for anyone that knows that kind of stuff. Um, but it was for Apple development for iOS handheld devices. And I had actually made a few apps and none that got in the App Store. Um, and I had gone after it professionally, and I interviewed with companies like Family Dollar, Bank of America, Ally Bank, and my very last interview was with BMW in South Carolina, which is the headquarters for their IT department and their mobile development center. Cool place, corporate building with glass walls, with stainless steel accents and everything. I interviewed with a panel of maybe 12 people, including the head mobile guy there. I ended up being number in the lead, me and another guy for the position, and the other guy got the position. Come to find out that he's the guy I was talking to online that we had been talking to for about a year. He had about 10 more years experience than I had. But at that time, I had to go back to work. So I got back into the swimming pool industry and got me back where I am today. So, anyways, I was good with iOS development, and I had a MacBook. So I went from Android to iPhone because I was an app developer. So that was a long story just to tell you about my iPhone. So, but good to know because when I went to school for that, I went for graphic design, and I did Photoshop and Illustrator and a lot of those things that really have to do with editing. And I think that's where my passion really comes from. Um, but if you have your phone, you've probably noticed that, there's all these settings in there. Which one should I be on? Should I be on 4K? Should I have it at 24 FPS, whatever FPS is? And what are these other settings here? So this right here tells you the recommended and what you should be. And I'm just going to kind of go through it a little bit, but it's going to be more for reference for where you should be. And again, you'll have access to everything that you see here and more. So I have some handouts that I wish I had months and years ago too, but you will have access to all of that. So first of all is the resolution. Most everything that you're going to do is going to be in 1080p. So that's the 920 by 1080 pixels. It's how many pixels this way and how many pixels this way. Basically the shape of it. So when you look at 4K, from what I understand, 4K is like 4 times the resolution of 1080. 2K is 2 times of 1080. So why does that matter? So having a higher resolution means a sharper, more professional video. If you've ever seen videos on TikTok and they look like fuzzy and like kind of cloudy white. It looks like they're in a fog. First of all, it's like, did you even clean your lens? And second of all, what kind of setting is your phone on? It's they might be speaking expertly about what they're talking about, but you can't get over how foggy their lens is, right? It doesn't need to be pristine. It doesn't need to be picture perfect with like a studio behind them because we can talk from anywhere. It's our brains that matter. It's what we can show others and teach others that matters. And then there's lower resolution. So as we go through here a little bit, you'll see kind of what they're used for. But for iPhone, you do want to have it on 1080p and 30 frames per second. That's basically what's visually best on social media, and it's what works. When you go to, see, is it further down? Yeah, a little further down. So I would say use 1080 for social media if you are doing a process video. So you want it for 30 minutes. You want to do a long form video, and we'll get into this too. A long form video on what I do, beginning to finish, to do what I do. This is my process. You want to have pretty good quality in that. So you might want to step up to a 2K. So you don't want to do every day in 2K because one, your storage is going to be huge. Now, my videos used to be like 4 or 5 megabytes. Now they're more like 50 to 100 megabytes. I have external storage, and I will get out to everybody too what I have for gear. My lights, my mic, my computer, my cables, my whatever, anything else. So I'll get that out. And again, you don't need any of it. All you really need is your phone. Phone and some light, because you can't really talk in the dark because you need to be faceless. So I'll get that out at some point too. For Android, you want to be 1080p or under 4K. Now, in the Mindstorm Media School community, maybe a month ago, I had a video, or it might have even been in the CapCut Masterclass. I mentioned that on Instagram. If you post anything higher than 1080p, it will downgrade it to much lower than that, and your videos will look much worse. I've since found, actually just this past Sunday, I was in a Zoom call, and I found out from one of the tech people at Instagram that that is not the case anymore. If you post a 2K video on Instagram, it will reinforce and it will show that 2K resolution very well. So I think it was Evan Bang, for anyone that has in the community with us. He had mentioned that, and I got to get back with him and let him know that that's not the case anymore. So
Is there something special you have to do to enable 2K? Because I either have 720, 1080p, or 4K as options.
in so what you would do is you can film it on 1080p on your phone, and right, so you 1080p or 4K on your phone. What you can do is you can do a 1080p, and then when you're in your favorite editing app or software, you can change that to 2K. So in CapCut, when you are in your editing, say when you actually, I think my phone is, there we go. When you're in that screen with the timeline and your image, then at the very top where you usually hit export, right next to it, there's a resolution button. You can change it from anywhere from 480p up to 4K. So that's where you can change it. And I believe most
How,
editing apps have that.
how can you take a 1080p video though and make it 2 or 4K? Wouldn't it
It
become like
does
grainy almost?
it does sharpen a bit because it's still in such a small space. The other thing to do is if you do use that 4K in your phone, and when you're in CapCut, change it to a 2K. So as long as you don't have any storage issues, anything like that, because 4K, those videos will add up space quite a bit. So if you have the capability, film in 4K, and then you can downgrade it to 2K. And what I do is I store that video on Google Drive and an external drive, and then I delete it from my phone. So I save that space. Just making sure that they're not connected, because on Google Drive, if you delete it, like your photo on Google Drive, it'll delete it off your phone too. So, but I actually keep it on my Google Drive, in a folder that I assign it. So it's not one that's synced. So, but yeah, that would be the best way to do that. Now with the frame rate, which you usually see as that's that 24, 30, or 60, and even goes up to 120 and further on from there. The higher numbers have more to do with slow motion. So it's basically frames per second. So it's basically like 30 FPS is 30 pictures per second. So they're basically taking mini pictures, really fast pictures, and they show them to you 30 times in 1 second. Now, 24 frames per second is what they do in the movies. It's cinematic. It's actually what we see. Our natural vision is more like a 24 frames per second. So it seems very natural for us. When you do a video in 24 frames per second, it looks more like a movie. It looks more like a production. So if you're going for that sort of look, you may want to do that. But for overall, you'll want to keep it at 30 frames per second. So, but if you are doing a very good, backstory video that you really want to relate, you're really looking into the camera and speaking to your audience, you probably want to do a 24 because they'll feel that connection a little bit more. So then you have and these are just settings. Basically, they're going to be on or off. So the HDR, high dynamic range, it basically gives you brighter brights and darker darks. So the contrast is going to be much better. You'll see different variations in colors and shadows. You'll get a better range of those. So sometimes it can look oversaturated in non-HDR. And you will actually have to, say in this next section, if you've ever seen RAW, which is a raw image format, and then ProRAW is just Apple's name for RAW. But there are, and I'll have some graphics on this too, but if you film in RAW, which is a function on your phone, when you put it in your editor, it'll look like hazy. It'll be almost like there's a white overlay on it, like opacity, like there's a white 50% opacity layer on your phone. And you'd be like, oh, this is no good. But it's actually capturing more color and more shadows. And you actually have to do a process called color grading to change that in your editor. It's a more advanced feature, and I'm not going to get into it, but just know what it is. That's all. So then we look at the file formats. You have the high efficiency versus most compatible. Most technologies have gotten pretty good with accepting, if you have an iPhone and you've seen that HEIC file, HEIC, or there's the HEIF, which is the high efficiency. It's not always compatible with everything, but more so lately, it has been. I haven't really found anything that it's not compatible with. Sometimes if you were to send an Apple photo to an Android user, they couldn't view it because Android was probably just boycotting that format. It wasn't a JPEG or it wasn't an MP4, and you couldn't view it. So choose the most compatible, because for larger file sizes, it works on all platforms. So you want to be most compatible with that. So that is basically all the information of a phone. No matter what phone you have, it's going to work. Don't feel you need to upgrade to the latest iPhone 16 or Galaxy. I don't know, what are they up to now? 24, maybe. I used to be Android, used to be a Galaxy user, but so as far as audio, I've done quite a few videos in the last few years because I do outside sales. I've done a lot of videos in my car, and you hear the road noise, and it's kind of fuzzy, and you're like, it's not too bad. But once you actually put a little effort into editing and you really nailed your message and you post it, and it sounds like you're talking on a train, you can barely hear. It's annoying. And if I were to hear that, I'd probably just scroll right by it. Once I heard like a sentence, I'm like, nope, can't hear it. Not good. I'm going. So you really want to make sure that your audio is coming through clear. If you have a newer phone, you most likely have a good built-in mic, and it'll probably sound better than most cheap mics. I've tried a couple of those ones on like TikTok Shop that I got for like $10, and they worked on a jam, but it sounded very digitized. And when I tried to enhance, like say on CapCut, you can enhance your voice, it didn't really sound right. So having the right microphone definitely will help and make you sound more professional. I also, in the Mindstorm community, in the tech hacks section in the classroom, I did a video on using Adobe's Enhance. Basically, it's a free service. You just drag your audio right on top of it. It takes a few seconds. It takes out all the background noise, it cleans it up, and then you can download it, save it where you want, and use it. I use that on every single one of my videos, and the sound quality is amazing. It works exceptionally well. And just recently, I went to a I basically had it up to here with my mics, and I ended up going with a top line DJI mic 2, which is this little fuzzy. My wife calls it a hamster. Like you got a hamster in your shoulder. But this thing is amazing. It blocks out noise. It is clear and crisp, but it's expensive. And you don't need this for everyday use. But just having a good, even a wired mic will work really well. But in a jam, if you're walking around the house or anything, using your phone, making sure it's in front of you. Because the worst thing that you want is you don't want to go in and out like this when you're talking, because then people can't really hear your message and it gets really annoying. So be mindful of that. But again, there's budget friendly, a wired lavalier mic that you can clip. They even make actually recommend you go up through your shirt. They have little stickies. They're mic stickies. You stick it here and then the mic sticks to it. And you put your little fuzzy on the inside of your shirt. And keeping it there will actually, it doesn't pick up the noise of your shirt. That's kind of what it was made for. But you can get those stickies at Amazon. I'll have it on my equipment list when I send that out to you guys. But those have come in helpful too. And then you have all the way up to mics. I have a Blue Yeti Pro mic, and it's okay, but its noise canceling feature is so good that when it doesn't pick up on my voice, it will actually drop my voice down. So I'll get fluctuations in my voice, and it's not good. So I'm probably looking at another mic called a shotgun mic, which basically one of those long, thin ones that points straight out to you. And it's going to give you the best clarity. And they even have some that are wireless, and the technology goes a bit deeper than that, but I won't get much further than that. And that brings us to lighting. So when I first started, I borrowed at the time my 12-year-old daughter, who she's now 15, soon to be 16. I borrowed her ring light, and it was the nice ring light with the cell phone holder in the center. And I put my phone right in the center there, and I looked at it, and my glasses had these 2 rings in them. I'm like, I can't have that because this has to be perfect. I can't do it. So after research and everything, you found that your main source of light, called your key light, is put up and away to a 45-degree angle. And again, as you get into lighting, you can change that. There's actually different techniques. Like mine, I have in a very low setting. It's only 15%. And I have a projection light with one of those big diffuser bulbs on it. And it's arm length away from me right here. And it works well. And then I have another light behind me that kind of shines up behind me with an LED light, which is an accent light, and then another light, which is kind of more for decoration, helps to balance it out. So when you're doing a studio or anything like that, you want to have balance in your picture, in depth. You don't want to have a wall right behind you. You want to make sure that there's space behind you. And if you do get lighting at some point, turn off the room lights. Turn off your spotlights, your overhead lights. Turn those off and just use the lights that you have. But again, not necessary. Find a place during the day that you have sunlight coming in. You'll have some shifts, if a cloud goes through or whatever, but so what? It's unless you're like in your office in your studio doing a video on presenting your story or anything, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect every time. But for those certain promotional videos, you might want that. But also keeping in mind, there's a lot of things to keep in mind, right? Is I'm even getting to the point now that I'm making my videos look so good that they look like commercials. They look like ads, like true ads, like a company made it and put it out there. And it looks so ad-like that people might just swipe by thinking it's an ad. So I still have to kind of lower it down and make it a little bit messy just so it's a bit more authentic and genuine. So, but I like that clean, polished look, and that's me. So if others don't like it, then I guess so what? That's what I do. I'm a video editor. I want my videos to look good. So, so best lighting setups, natural light, because it's free. Face a window, avoid backlighting. You don't want a light coming from behind you because it puts your face in a shadow. And again, that 45-degree light shines a little bit on this way. And there's actually a technique called a Rembrandt where it puts like an actual triangle, creates a shadow on your nose. And the level of darkness here is how you rate the strength of the Rembrandt technique. It's crazy. There's a science to it. So techniques for professional results. If you are, I'm going to see here quick. If I get into, I'm going to screen share my phone. All right, there we go. Infinite loop right there. So if you are, I'm shooting my coffee mug right there, and it just can't get it into focus. If you put your put your finger on what you want to focus, see that square that popped up, and at the top it says AEAF lock. I forget what it stands for, but it's basically autofocus AF, and it locks it in there. If I take my thumb off, it's now focused on that. So if you're ever doing a scene where you have your phone set up, but you're back like 5 feet, what you can do is, if you can reach it, you almost like focus it further back, like where you're supposed to be, so it focuses on you better. So there's some techniques there too, but not getting crazy. And then with that on focus on that cup, just to the right, you see that little sun. I can move that up to increase the amount of light coming in, or down to get more of a dramatic look. So just a little technique that you can change right there in your phone. Now I do 80% of my videos with the regular camera. I do the rest of them either in CapCut or another app that I have that works with my gimbal. And I'll show you that. But if you see here on my phone in the top right, it says RAW. There's that RAW. If I tap that, now it doesn't have a line going through. It's now going to film in RAW format. So if I put that in my editor, it's going to look fuzzy. It's going to look like a haze over it. That means that I have to do further editing and do color grading. So usually you want to have it off until you get to the point where you really want to play with that. So, and here's in CapCut too. So here's the 2K and the 1080p setting right there too while I'm there. So what I'll do is I'll just go back to my other one.
When you're using your phone, Alan,
Yeah.
do you predominantly use the rear-facing camera or the front-facing camera?
So the way that you are supposed to, because it gives the best picture, is the rear facing. It's the better camera. But now I also have an Apple Watch. So if I go into the phone on my watch, I can see what my phone is looking at through my watch. So it actually gives you that viewfinder right in my watch. So I'll do that. But sometimes, now I do use teleprompter at times. So teleprompter I use is through the phone. So I have to look at the screen. So I use that screen facing camera. Not the best, but for me, it works well. So for anybody doing average, unless you're doing like brand quality, like 2K, 4K videos, then that front facing or rear facing, the screen side camera will work just fine. I haven't, had anybody say, hey, your videos are kind of fuzzy, because mine actually come through almost too clear, I think, at times. And it's super bright. I don't know why. But so yeah,
Well,
I use
and
that
that's
screen.
been my opinion,
Yeah.
but mainly because, like, if you have it on a tripod or a gimbal or whatever,
Yeah.
and you're using a rear-facing camera, then you're guessing if you're cutting your head off or something like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So either if you have an Apple Watch where you can see yourself and you can actually start and stop your camera from your watch. If not, another technique is to set up your camera and then put a marker like on the ground, the floor, the grass, the pavement, whatever you're on, put a marker there so you know where to stand and then just film it, go over there, maybe go through some motions of what you plan on doing in the video and then go back and watch it and see if you're in frame. If you're not, then maybe you have to move a little to the left or right, a little forward and adjust yourself. You might just have to do that a couple times. And I've done that plenty of times. So you know that you're in frame. So that can work too if you really want to use that and do it that way. Make myself a little bigger. Okay, so I got back. I think we should be looking back at techniques for professional results. Is that still on your screen? Okay, great. And then I won't have to demonstrate this, but in your phone, you have the option of having grid lines on there. So that puts those like little yellow grid lines across the phone, both vertical and horizontal. And that will actually break up your phone to where you need it into thirds. And that top line, that top 1/3 is usually where you want to have your eyes. You want to have your eyes right there. And there'll be some graphics if you look back that you'll see that I'll show you on. And then again and we'll get into this too, but your captions, you'll usually want your captions right under your chin. They don't really want to block your face, but if they're looking at the captions, then they're looking at you. And if when you are recording that video, if you are looking into the camera, then they get a better connection. And I don't know if I'm like 2 inches on your screen or if I'm actually right up in it because I'm on the screen share. But there's a difference of looking into the lens like I am now or just looking over to the side. There's a slight disconnect that you don't really notice, but your mind does. So if you can look right at the lens, even if you're looking at the screen facing side, look in that top center. Look there and not at yourself. Look in that top point and just pretend there's your best buddy in there waving at you and you're talking to him in that top center of your phone. So stabilization. Sometimes you want your videos to look natural. If you're walking, some vibration and there's a little bit of movement to it. Sometimes you want it smoother. So I have this gimbal right here. Basically, you put your phone in here and it kind of balances it straight. It can do landscape or portrait. It has some functions where it can, do some weird kind of rotational things, but it basically keeps it in one place. Even with it off, you can see that this right here stays in one spot as I move it. And it has an app and it has, face recognition. It can follow you. It can track you. And I got this I think I got this on TikTok for like $45. And it works pretty well. And yeah, I might get a better one at some point. So, hey Jim, how's it going? Glad you can make it.
Hey, what's up? I just ended my call with Flip and Nate, so sorry to come in late here.
Awesome. I bet you're all pumped up though.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
got some
think
direction.
I think some of us know those guys. So,
I was just
which
gonna quietly slip. I was just
yeah,
gonna quietly slip in here and kind of blend in. So,
yep, awesome. Glad I was like, I hope I'm kind of keeping an eye out and hoping I see anybody. And yeah, I'm glad I caught you. It dinged at me, so that's good.
cool.
And actually, I think I'm screen sharing the wrong one again. So I am going to change that back again. That's the one I want to share. There we go. Okay, so there we go with the techniques for professional results should be on your screen now. And Jim, don't worry, you didn't miss much. We were just kind of BSing, talking about the weather. That's all. No, but I will say that there definitely will be a replay. As of now, once this is done, it'll be posted in the classroom, in the Editing Made Easy classroom in school. And if you are aware or not too, that the 3-day intensive, it's over 3 sessions. So it's probably going to be more like at least like 3 to 4 weeks. So next few weeks, I have a few things going on. I'm not dead set on Wednesday at noon. So if we all figure that there's a better time or something that works, I can do it sooner because I have something next Wednesday and another thing after that. But we all decide that a Sunday or a Tuesday night works, then I'm all for that too. So we'll touch on that later anyways. But
I'll tell you what, just my quick input on that. I'm going to be out of town for that trip that we talked about. So
yeah,
whatever works for you and the rest of the group, do it. I'll just catch the replay if I have to.
yeah. And, I don't want to interrupt your vacation there, So I know it's rough, but
Yeah, sorry. Being
just kidding.
retired stuff. Yeah.
I'm grateful for anybody that can travel, anybody that can even put food on their table because there's people in much worse situations. And I know I've been in much worse situations myself. And I'm grateful every single morning for everything I have. And I think, and Jim, you missed the mindset part of it. I got pretty pumped up, but you'll have to watch the replay. So I even had a Tony Robbins video, like a 2-minute video I was going to play too, but I wanted to move it along. So I think I motivated everybody enough because they're not sleeping yet. So, yeah. So yeah, just went through any of the documents that you see will all have available to you, and some other handouts and other goodies that I have for you too. So what I would do, an actionable step, and I'll send out an email like reminder, like some actionable steps to do. One for this activity is just to go in and kind of change your settings, to what was recommended, and just look at them and maybe understand them a little bit, at least be cognizant of them, and choose the right resolution and the right frame rate. Make sure does your phone sound good if it's a foot away? How does it sound holding it 3 feet away? That way that, okay, well, I need a mic if it's going to be more than 2 feet away from me because my phone, even though it's brand new, just doesn't pick up my voice very well. So, but just record a 30-second clip, 30-second video of an introduction of who you are and what you do. Either I'm a dad and a baseball coach, or I am a hard worker and I work 12 hours a day and I've been doing it for 67 years. So whatever it is you want to talk about, but just get used to the settings on that. So that is your mastering the basics of content creation because your smartphone is your studio.